Now that we've had some time to talk about part modeling and design intent, let's go ahead and take a look at the creation of a fairly simple model. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a Lego block. And this is actually one of your first assignments, so if you work through this video, you should see some of the steps used to create this. I'm sure all of you could create this block. I just want to walk you through my thought process as I create a part, and this seems like a pretty nice part to work with. So, with that said, let's go ahead and jump into SolidWorks. First thing to think about with a Lego block is how do we want to orient it in SolidWorks? The Lego blocks have a pretty natural orientation. The bumps are the top of the block, and then the long side is probably the front, and the right side is the right side. So with that in mind, we can probably orient our part. Some strategy, we probably want to draw the solid block first. The bumps on the top and the tubes on the bottom suggest pattern features, so we need to create one of those. The hollow out on the bottom can be done a couple of ways, but probably the best way to do that is with a shell feature, so we will approach that. So our strategy will be to create the solid block, add a single bump on top, and then pattern that, then go ahead and hollow it out, add the tubes on the bottom, and hopefully we'll be done. So let's see if we can do this. So I'm going to start out with a extruded boss, so start in the feature mode. Be aware of the plane that I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick the front plane to start my model on, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that is the size of the block, making sure that I am in an inch-pound system unit. And one curious thing about Lego blocks is that even though they are made in Europe, they are dimensioned in inch-pound systems and always have been. And a Lego block is 1.25 inches long according to our dimensions. And the height of a Lego block is 3/8 of an inch, which is 0.375. And so there's my basic shape. If I exit the sketch, I'm going to extrude it. I could do either blind extrude or mid-plane. Probably a blind is as good as any in this case. The depth of the extrusion is the width of the block, which is 5/8. So 0.625 for the depth. And there I have my base for my block. So I'm well on my way to getting my Lego block designed. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of the bumps on the top of the block. So I'm going to also do that as an extruded boss. I'm going to pick the top surface and shift my view so I can look straight at that. It's always a little bit nice to be able to do that. One thing I want to think about is how this part is going to change. If I change the width of the block, it's going to expand down to the bottom of the screen and to the right because I have it fixed to the origin. So I'm going to draw my bump over here so I can create a pattern that goes down and to the right. So as I change my part, hopefully that pattern has room to expand in the same direction as my block. So that's the design intent. This block, this hole is 0.1563. I'm trying to think what that dimension is. I think that's 3 divided by 32, so I'm going to let SolidWorks do the math for me, and that's not right. Maybe it's 5 divided by 32, so 5 30-seconds. There we go, that's 5 30-seconds from one edge, and 5 30-seconds from the other edge. So when you're working with English units, and you see these long drawn out dimensions like 0.1563, which is what I'm trying to reproduce, those are probably some fractions in terms of quarters, eighths, sixteenths, or 30-seconds of an inch. And these bumps have a diameter of 0.1875. That sounds like maybe 3/16. So let's try 3/16 and see if we can get 1.875. And I think that is 1.875. Fully constrained sketch, and that is a good thing. And so we can exit here, rotate around so we can see what's happening. Our extrusion height is going to be 0.0625. I'm not sure what that fraction is, but it's easy enough to just type in the number as well. So 0.0625. And there's my bump. And then the last thing is Lego blocks have a little bit of a fillet on the top of them, and so I'm going to go ahead and add a fillet and pick this top surface here, enter my fillet radius, and the radius is 0.0063. That's just an approximation of the actual radius, so if you're trying to reproduce a Lego block, don't quote me on that. And let me see if I can click on the key, accept key, and there we go. So we have the bump. And if you're wondering if I'm going to write the word Lego on top of this, the answer is no. So I'll leave that for your ambition if you think that's a necessary part of this design. Okay, so I've got one bump there. Next thing to do would be to pattern it. Pretty simple thing. So let me find my pattern feature somewhere up here. Linear pattern, there we go. Got all kinds of possible patterns, but this is going to be a linear pattern. So I need to define the direction, pick an edge to define the direction. See the arrow pointing to the right. I want to do the spacing for my pattern, and the spacing is 0.3125, 0.3125. And how many instances do I want? Well, I want 4 bumps going in this direction. And then I'm going to specify direction 2, pick the edge that defines the direction. I see the arrow pointing in the wrong direction here, so I'm going to flip this direction. The spacing is the same, 0.3125. And I want 2 copies in this direction. And the thing that's always confused me a little bit about solid modeling, but I've gotten used to it, is when you specify how many copies you want, it actually includes the number, includes the original one. And let me do a full preview down here, and hopefully it will show me. It's not showing me. Oh, I haven't picked anything to pattern yet. Well, of course it's not showing me anything. So I'm going to pick my bump, but I don't only want the bump, I also want the fillet. So I'm going to make sure the fillet is also on all of these, and that pattern looks very nice. So I'm going to accept that, and there's the Lego with the proper pattern on the top of it. So now that I've got the bumps set up, all I have to do is shell out the bottom, and then I can finish it by adding the tubes on the bottom. So I could do a cut to create this shell, but that wouldn't make the model as flexible. So I'm going to do a shell. So go find the shell operation. I think I do not have the wall thickness specified, so I'm pretty sure the wall thickness is 0.0625. Pretty sure that's right. Faces to remove, I'm going to remove the bottom face, and that's all I need for this shell, I think. Thickness value is greater. Okay, so we'll see how this works. And that worked okay. It was having some problem with these small radiuses on the bottom, but we managed to succeed. And if you actually look at a Lego block, you see it shelled out the bumps. This is kind of why I did the shell second, because if you look at a Lego block, they make these by injection molding, and you will see these little bumps because they have a uniform shell thickness. So there's my Lego block with the shell, and all I need to do is add my tubes on the bottom. And again, this is another strategy thing. I want to make sure that I figure out where's my origin. So my origin is down here at the bottom right, so I'm going to make sure I reference that and draw my tube. I'm going to draw it on the inside of the shell. I think this is a good idea. I've got 2 choices here. I could draw it on this surface, or I could draw it on this surface. And which one I want to do, no, I'm going to draw it on this surface, and we'll come back in the future if this is a bad choice. I will correct it in a future video. So our next video we're going to look at modifying a part. So I'm going to go ahead and do an extruded boss on the bottom surface of the shell, a couple of circles. So just go ahead and define my tube, add some dimensions. Here the inside one is 0.1875, and we decided that that was 1875. I don't remember what we decided that was. 3/16. And that appears like I've got that correct. There's a wall thickness here that on the drawing says 0.0313, and I'll just type that in because I don't feel like the stress of trying. Oh, that's probably 1/64. Let me try 1/64. 1 divided by 64. No, that wasn't right. I should have just gone with the 2/64. 1/32. How about that? There we go. 1/32. And I need to locate this. So the location of this is 3125 from the edge and 3125 from the other edge. And so I've got it located, fully dimensioned, fully constrained. Everything looks fine. Ready to extrude. And we're going to extrude. I've got options. I don't want to go blind because Legos, one thing that happens with Legos is we can change the height. We have short Legos and tall Legos. And so I'm going to not set a height, but I'm going to go up to a surface. And I'm going to go up to this bottom surface. And say okay with that. So there's our tube. And let me do some, now I've got all these parts here. Let me name my features. So this is the block. First thing I did was a bump, and this is part of our good design intent. It doesn't take us long to rename these things. So this is my bump fillet. So just kind of remembering what's what. And so L pattern 1, I'm going to create I want to make sure I can distinguish between my bump pattern and my tube pattern. So I'm going to name this Boss Extrude that I just made my tube. And now that I've got everything renamed, I'm going to go ahead and create a pattern again. So linear pattern, pick my direction, and it's going in the correct direction. My spacing on this 312.3125. Number of instances, I'm going to have 3, including the original. Direction 2. Let me pick my bodies of pattern. I'm going to pick the tube and go down and take a look at the full preview, hopefully. It doesn't show me anything. So we'll continue with direction 2. Now you might think, well, you only have one direction here, but if we want to change the size, eventually I might want a second direction. And so something that you should do is put in a second direction, 3125, and it shows 2 there, but I only really want 1 because for now I'm just kind of not going to use that second direction, but I will in just a minute when I check design intent. And let me do the second direction again. I'm going to put that 2 back in there. I can see it's going in that direction. Well, we'll see how it comes out. That may or may not be the right direction, but I can always come back and fix that. So there's my tube pattern, and I'm good. There's my block. There's my Lego, fully finished. Well, not quite fully finished. You know, we really sometimes need to add color to things. So let's go to our appearance menu and go with our Lego block, the full part, and see if we can put a color on this. You know, the classic color for Lego blocks is red, I think. We could, green is, well, no. Lego block, the classic color is just red. So we'll just make it red. And there we have a red Lego block. Before we finish out this, let's check the design intent and make sure things work properly. If I want a bigger block, say I want to double the size of this block, so 1.25 becomes 2.5. Does it work? Okay, that works nicely. If I want to double the width, 1.25, and I'm just doubling things because it'll make my patterns easy to work with. So I've expanded my base. Everything looks nice there. A little bit worried about this, that my tubes are referenced to a different edge than my bumps, but perhaps that will not be a problem. So now I'm going to go back to my bump pattern, which I've defined. I'm going to edit it, and instead of 4 bumps, because I doubled the size, I should now have 8 in one direction and 4 in the other direction, and that fills in very nicely. And then for the tube pattern, and I should rename this, so I'll name this as my tube pattern, and then I can edit this, edit my tube pattern, and now I need 7 in one direction. And this is why I put the second direction on this initially, so if I made changes, I could easily update the second direction. So 3 in the second direction, and that is going in the correct direction. So pretty happy about that. And so my design intent is nice. I can quickly update and change the size of my Lego block. Oh, one last thing. Let's see if we can change the height of this block. Here's 0.38. A short Lego block would be 1/8 of an inch tall. And if I make this change, hopefully everything sticks together. The tubes go up to the surface, so the tubes automatically shrink because they just extrude up to the surface. So we're looking good. So this is the Lego block. And in the next video we'll look at changes to make this Lego block into a different shape and kind of test our design intent to see if it allows us to work with this Lego block and manipulate it and make a potential series of Lego blocks.